If you didn't know that Jim Crow wasn't just the name they made up for the laws, but actually the name of a character in a minstrel show. You know, minstrel shows, most popular form of entertainment in the 20th century, and they would all like wear blackface, you know, like rub tar and burnt cork and dressed up in ripped up rags. That's what Jim Crow was. But there was another character that was the counterpart to Jim Crow. He was called Zip Coon. And basically, while Jim Crow was supposed to be the country folk who, you know, couldn't put a string of words together and all he could do was like dance and celebrate, Zip Coon was supposed to be the epitome of Black society, of the elites. And so he would wear these really nice, fancy clothes and make these long speeches, but they'd all be malapropisms. Malapropism is like, you meant to say bon appetit, but you said bon apple teeth, and you don't understand that you said it wrong, and so you don't understand why everybody is laughing at you, right? And so that's how they construct this character, that he is so lacking of communication skills that he purely speaks in gibberish and believes everyone can understand it. That's so interesting as a myth to spread about a group of people that created their own dialect. AAVE, African American Vernacular English, Ebonics, African American English, whatever you want to call it, because you know what a spoken language would never be? An acronym. Right? It would never break down into like individualized letters that represent the words because it could not be written. They would not let the enslaved people read and write. And that is why they had to create such a covert language where you could speak to someone who the message was intended for and they would understand it, but somebody who the message wasn't intended for would not perceive anything you were saying. So then, of course, the white people took this and they said, oh, we don't get it, so they're not saying anything. Where else does Zip Coon show up? Well, everywhere, because his titular song, called Zip Coon, is the melody of Zippity-Doo-Dah-Day. It's also the melody of the ice cream truck song, but it's like not taken directly from Zip Coon. There was a little stopover point where, and I'm going to try and say it nice this time because my last video got banned. The song, the ice cream truck song, is just the melody to Love a Watermelon, Ha, Ha, Ha. Swear. So basically they take like this Zip Coon melody and they add all these racist words on top of it. Lyrics, that's what they're called. And so it might be like, it is, hey, come get your ice cream. That's right, black man's ice cream, watermelon. So what was that song about? Why watermelon, right? Where did it start that they think black people love watermelon so much? Well, it was this thing called coon cards. It was these like postcards that people would collect with these super racist depictions of black people, depictions that were really just a representation of the minstrel characters with their overdrawn red lips and their burnt cork skin tone, with this wild hair so they could be beasts, right? So that everything, all the image that they were creating lined up with the message they wanted people to believe. And so one of the myths that came from minstrelsy is that black people will drop anything to eat and drop anything to dance. It critically ignores the reality that enslaved people were whipped, starved, beaten to the bone. So of course you would stop too if you could eat because they barely let you. You might dance and celebrate when you had a moment because they worked you like a dog. It also fails to account for the fact that this frivolous dancing was actually a way to spread messages, right? Like patting Jumba, the rhythmic motions that you make to make sounds on your body, syncopated sounds. They started doing that after the enslavers made it illegal to play drums because they could send intertribal communication through drum playing. And when they took all those tribes and different colonies and civilizations and put them all here and said, you're Christian now, speak English now, they relied on their nonverbal methods of communication. So what better way to neutralize the threat than to say that it's nonsense? They're just dancing to dance. They're not saying anything. They don't mean anything. They're just talking to make noise. They don't know what words are. They can't communicate. So interesting. So then how come it's like still the ice cream truck song? Well, this was like early 20th century when ice cream trucks were basically invented because ice cream producers realized they could get more product to the people if they wheeled it around in refrigerated trucks. And those trucks had radios. Radio was big. It was new. It was all white because the radio stations had to have standards, and colored music didn't fit that standard. I'm all over the place, y'all, but sorry, I'm just trying to info dump on you so I can get back to studying for the bar. What is colored music would be the next question, right? Anything a black person makes. So we already know black people invented country music, right? If we didn't know before, Beyonce told us. They also invented tap dancing. So you'll notice in her shows, she has like tap dancers and just a lot of touch points back to the original history of what country music really was. Because country music's like banjo, right? That twang. You know, that was an African instrument. And they brought it here. I mean, not brought it physically, but here. And when drums became illegal, they carved them and they played them. And that was the first time white people heard the banjo. So basically, then the radio comes. White people and black people are making country music, but only the white people's country music can get on the radio because that's country music. But then when a black person does it, it's race music. So we've got these like songs that originate wholly from black music and black creativity, but they've been like layered over, whitewashed, almost quite literally, for the purpose of spreading propaganda, and they became the most popular songs of the time. So naturally, the ice cream truck was just playing what was popular, and that was the song that stuck. So now, every time you hear that tune, I'm sorry to say, you probably will be thinking, love a watermelon, ha, ha, ha. Tell your friends, we got to keep this history alive.